Well, forgive me, but I'm going to have to read part of this. But I think I've met just about everybody here. But good evening.
Good evening.
Getting out in this cold weather. I'm Terry Redmond. I'm chairman of the DeWitt County Democratic Central Committee, and we sponsored this nonpartisan event to try to make us all smarter. Because I sure don't know enough about AI, and every time I turn on the TV, that's what they're talking about. So I know some of the younger people use this frequently in writing papers, and I didn't even know they were using it, but it's bigger than I thought it was. We are pleased to have with us tonight an expert on artificial intelligence. Roy Magnuson has earned degrees in, come on in, Don, in music composition from ISU and from Ithaca College in New York and from the University of Illinois. Yep. You've been all over the place, right? Yeah. He is an associate professor at ISU, and where he teaches music composition and serves as director of emerging technologies, instruction, and research. So he's an expert in this field and should be real helpful in educating us. He speaks to community groups and professional groups frequently on how this new technology works, including the ethical and creative uses of artificial intelligence. Following his presentation, there'll be time to ask him questions, because I'm sure we're going to have them. So please join me in welcoming Roy Magnuson.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. So I'm going to stand here just so I can also read to you guys, because I know it's kind of small and like the TV and angling, all that stuff. And then the presentation will be available to you guys afterwards. I'll give you a QR code if you want to mail it out. Just so you know, this is just, I'll try to be as transparent about this stuff as possible. I do a lot of these talks, right? And it's something that, if you're not aware, AI is really good at, generative AI, like a ChatGPT or something like that, is coding, very good at computer programming. And this presentation, these are all my words that kind of used an AI to assemble, because you know what's better than PowerPoint is just make a website. If the AI is super good at coding, PowerPoint is just something you don't even have to use at all, because you work with the thing to build the thing it wants to build, which is a website. So this is actually just a website that is a presentation. That is an easier way to put together a presentation than sitting and putting together all the boxes in PowerPoint, which PowerPoint exists for us, right, as humans, to try to like organize it. But it's really great to be able to work with a system that can just do that, and you can walk through and lay it out the way you want it to. So that's kind of what this is, but again, I'll share it out if you guys want to look more closely or anything like that. But I'll stay up here and read just so you can, you're not squinting and trying to figure out what it is. So yeah, this is a conversation about AI. We're going to try to talk broadly about what it is, the nuance that we cannot afford to lose. So fear, wonder, misinformation, and the difficult work of thinking together. I've given a lot of talks on AI. I started this, I guess maybe a little more context. Why am I talking to you? I'm a composer, right? I have 3 degrees in music, which is more of an existential threat to our reality than anything, that I'm the one talking to you about AI, because it's this great democratization of information, right? The access to information and how you learn things is changing rapidly. I do have a background in technology and art. I went to Illinois for my doctorate. If you didn't know, University of Illinois is the oldest electronic music studio in the Western Hemisphere. So really big hotbed for electronic music. Got into that when I was there, and that kind of set me into this path of technology and art. And, got into made some virtual reality apps, started coding, teach that stuff at ISU. Also teach this afternoon. I was teaching a student how to write a cello concerto. I mean, it's a really eclectic kind of life at this point. But more than anything, I think it's just really interesting that I'm curious about this stuff. I've kind of started doing a lot of this at ISU. And that, more than anything, is just really fascinating that anyone is able to learn this stuff and use tools to kind of focus and push and dig in whatever direction you want to go. So just starting here, right? I know a few two folks, we were chatting about like you're seeing AI everywhere, which is true. What most people see is really awful. I think most of the AI stuff that's out is pretty bad. There's a thing called slop, so the slop in your social media feeds is really bad AI content. The quotation stuff, not my word, but the enshittification of products, it's actually a term that people are using now. It means that like whenever anything that has that you can pay for, right, it's going to get worse and worse as people drive towards the maximum profit margin. And AI is doing that. Like your Google searches, right, have AI infused into them now because they're trying to figure out how to productize this thing, right, that's like hitting us, Gemini in that case for Google. Student work that you can't trust anymore. Students using it to cheat. Creative output that feels hollow, weirdly mechanical, or just kind of makes you feel queasy, like something's not quite right about that picture you're looking at. That's awful, and it's not what we should be using this technology for. I am not here to sell you anything, and I really want to make sure, I'll say it multiple times, that I'm not here to defend, Elon Musk or Sam Altman or any of these people. Please don't make that association. I see what you guys see, right? As a concerned parent and a 9 and a 10-year-old. As a person who writes music, knowing the art that I've made has been ingested into models, right, and is being used to train things. The thing is, though, it's just the tip of the iceberg, what you are seeing. So what we see most is the part being sold to us, and the part that everyone rightfully has opinions about. Right? It's changing the way you interact with things. At the very least, it's changing the way that we are dealing with data or security, right? What's nearly impossible to see unless you're following this constantly, I mean constantly, is changing so quickly and it's accelerating, is that good, well-meaning people are using this technology to do genuine good work. There's a ton of that. But it is not what you are going to be seeing in a newsfeed, it's not what's going to be on even NPR or something like that. It's just not. Like we're going to hear what is coming from these companies as a product. But the underlying technology is fundamentally disassociated with that, right? And we'll chat like more, and I can certainly answer more questions about that as we go on. So first off, like where are we? Like what is this moment that we're in? Well, AI is not new at all. So to me it's like ancient, right? The Greeks wrote about like automatons and robots and stuff, right? That concept. The modern sense of it, it's like circa 1950. Alan Turing, the mathematician, wrote a paper in 1950 called Thinking Machines, this idea that machines could be used to process thinking. There's this Turing test that we have completely blown past at this point where, would you know reasonably if you were interacting with a machine? I guarantee you guys daily are interacting with AI and you have no idea. It's just like, we are absolutely way beyond that at this point. And it's kind of gone up and down over time, right? As it's kind of been part of our zeitgeist for a long time. Ups and downs. The roots of what we're seeing now are like in the 1980s: deep learning, neural networks, machine learning, like all those words if you've heard them. 1997, Deep Blue as a chess champion, right? Assistance, I won't say her name, the S lady, but make your phones do things. AlphaGo, if you followed that, like incredibly complicated game Go, that Google made an AI called AlphaGo that remarkably beat a human at it, but also did it in a way that no one thought was possible. And if you go and read about it, it's fascinating. Made what everyone thought was a blunder. We're like, oh my gosh, it completely threw the match. But what they found out was it had thought through playing Go in a way that no human ever could possibly do that, and that was the move that defeated the human. Right? These are all like things that have been bubbling up. On here, ChatGPT in 2022 is kind of a marker. That's when it hit kind of mainstream because it was easy to use, right? It's like a website. Go to the website, talk into the thing. We've been talking about it for 75 years, but what's changed? This is a massive oversimplification, and also with the caveat, I don't have any degrees in machine learning or computer science, so like I've been learning this over the last 3 or 4 years more in depth. But it's good, you can kind of think of it like buckets like this. There's predictive or like kind of narrow AI. This has been around for a long time. You've been interacting with it for a long time in a lot of different ways. Things like classic chatbots, if you remember talking to a thing, and eventually be like, hey, I'll put you on with a human. Autocorrect, recommendation systems, like when your Netflix feed, right, is like trying to figure out what you want to watch, right? That's not making new shows for you. It's not saying, wow, you like Is It Cake? Do you want to watch Is It Breakfast? Like that's not what that AI does, right? It's just trying to predict what you would like. Medical diagnostics, right? Looking at all of your data, predicting based on a number of parameters, right? That has been around for a long time. Generative AI, sort of the paradigm that's on fire right now. And that's creating new data that's similar to and identical to the data it's trained on. So making something bespoke, right? Based on what it has seen or what it has read. So these are things like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. Those are what we're called language models. And at this point, you can think of them way more than just like language. They basically ingested the internet and have access to multimodal things so they can see pictures, they can create video, they can watch video, they can hear audio, and they can make all of those things. And they got to that point through language, through reading, right? If humans, I think the word I heard was like, or the fact I heard is like, you read like 2 billion words in your life, which actually sounded really low to me. I thought it would be much higher. There are trillions and trillions of parameters in each one of these things. So it's massively like outscaling like what a normal human would ingest in their life. And then things like DALL-E or there's now, Nano Banana is what the Google one's called. It's like image making software, or different like voice cloning things, deep fakes. These are all kind of the same technology. The problem is, right, the same thing that is driving like bad actors, right, to make a deep fake, is also enabling incredible medical research. And you don't see that. Like you're not going to see that on the news, right? That diffusion models that are the same thing fundamentally as like something that Elon Musk's XAI is doing. That if you saw the news, it's like people are like undressing people on X, right? And it's like this is horrible. It's abhorrent. We don't need that in our culture. The same fundamental technology. There was an article out of China where they trained these models on hundreds of thousands of gastrointestinal scans, and they were looking at pancreatic cancer, and it flagged 14 people as having cancer, and they're like, those people don't have cancer. But they did have cancer, but a human would never have known. Right? That's insane. Like that's so great. It's fundamentally the same technology, and that's the difficulty, and that's the nuance, right? We have to be able to have these conversations. This is also really hard to understand. I was not good. I found out during the pandemic of understanding exponential growth, like how fast things can change. It's not linear progress. We're not seeing linear progress with AI. The task an AI can do, the length of that doubles about every 7 months. So if you think back to ChatGPT in 2022, couldn't do anything. You just ask it a thing and that was it, right? But then it started extending. If you remember back, a kind of easy thing that people were saying and people still think is that they can't do math. They absolutely can do math now because they can use calculators, right? They're using tools and looking into stuff. And are in the top, gold medaling in international math Olympiad competitions, are in the cutting edge, actually solving theorems that humans have never solved. This thing on the end here, it says 88%. It's called the ARC-AGI challenge. This was a challenge made by this endowment, ARC, where they wanted to make a test for AGI, which is called artificial general intelligence, which means that an AI that can generalize. It can basically do everything. And it's not trained on anything in particular, so it's trained on everything. You can train it on math and all these things, but it can also kind of do music, because it's just learned a lot about everything. And that they said, if this thing can pass this test, then we have AGI. And an 80% was a pass. And 2 years ago, it was 0%. So what did they do? They made a harder test. So we've recently moved the goalposts, and now things are creeping up to that harder test, right? So benchmarks that seem years away are being crossed in months now. The how long an AI can do something is really fascinating, right? So it's one way to measure this. Researchers at this place called METR, M-E-T-R, measure it directly. They give AI agents tasks that take humans varying amounts of time and see what they can reliably finish. Okay, so the current state, these are the best models, they can reliably complete tasks that would take a skilled human about an hour. Reliably is like, human level accuracy. The trend, the length of the AI test complete, how long it can be, is doubling every 7 months, and has been for 6 years. And there's no indication it's going to stop. Reliably is the word there. At a 50% accuracy level, they can do 30 hours. So that doubles, right? We are looking at, autonomous week-long work by the end of the decade. If it doesn't break down, which again is a caveat. Like asterisk could break down. Like the scaling laws don't have to be. Right? There are a lot of reasons why it might not. You're talking about saying, here you go. And it's not like a week long of human work. These things work faster than us. They can maintain work for a week, right, on a task. It doesn't mean AI is intelligent, right? It doesn't mean it thinks the way that we do, but the capabilities are real, okay? The curve is steep, and even though that's a large measurement, the errors only shift like a timeline or two if there's a problem. Or they only shift by a year or two if there's a problem, right? So even if that is not quite, the scaling doesn't quite work, we're talking like 2032, right? There's no indication we aren't heading towards that. The question is not whether it's happening, it's whether we're paying attention and we're realizing this is happening, because again, that's not going to be told to you when you're saying like, hey, should I get this Gemini subscription? That's like the research that's happening in the background. That's what Siri is going to be in 5 years. Which is, again, incredible. Like there can be amazing good that can come out of that, and like terrifying things that can come out of that. As a question, this is a projection, and I say it on here, this is speculative, so like don't like go to the woods and start digging holes to get into. But some of the smartest people in the field are actively planning for this. Is a thing called an intelligence explosion. And if you want to read like something that reads like true science fiction, go read Situational Awareness, this website. It is wild. It's the point where AI can self-replicate, right? So you can create an AI agent or an AI system that's helping you create AI. And when we get to that point, it's basically lined straight up, like, because you've removed the most inefficient part of it, which is us, from the loop. And we truly don't know what will happen then, and there are a lot of very scary things that could happen, as you can imagine. And again, there are lots of like potentially really, really good things, like disease is not a thing, right? Bespoke medicine. Like you go to the doctor and it's able to synthesize a drug for you based on your chemistry because it just runs a million simulations of your chemistry. And then they make the medicine for you. Right? It's not like, hey, can you try this pharmaceutical trial? It's like, no, here's your pill. This is what you need. And the next person comes in, it's their thing, right? Like that's a very real thing that people are talking about trying to figure out how to do, which is bananas. Like that's like so crazy, right? Again, the weak part of the chain there is us. We have to like practice on a human, right, and figure out does this medicine work. But if you can synthesize a human, again, I'm trying to say it's spooky sounding, but you can synthetically test the thing a million times on a synthetic person, then you can do that. You get a straight line up in research, right? Try to solve as many problems as possible. So follow the money, right? $309 billion in data center spending by 2025. AI infrastructure spending is projected to reach $1 trillion over the next 5 years. Okay, they're not altruistic, like the people that are doing this, right? I do think many of the researchers around this are really good people. They're trying to do really good work. This is like the biggest like gold rush that I think we've ever seen, ever. Talking about trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars around cognitive labor, like in having the ability to do this sort of thing. The optimistic read, right, is massive investments suggest genuine capability. Great. The skeptical read, it's a bubble, which I think we should all be really concerned about. It's a circular exchange of money, which it is. There's stock manipulation and it's insane investment fear, which it is. They're both probably correct, and it probably is a bubble and it probably will burst. The technology won't disappear. Okay, the underlying technology is here. It's a quote from Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI. Again, I've referenced a few people in here. I think you need to, as I say here, is this hype? Maybe. Is it worth taking seriously? Absolutely. You should listen to the people when they're saying these things that question everything that people are saying. Where he says, I think it's plausible that by March of 2028 we'll have a legitimate AI researcher. That's the straight line. Okay, they think that like they're going to start passing off the kind of speed of doing this to a system that they're building that is recursive. It's like self-reinforcing. There are a lot of people, there's a book called If Anyone Builds It, We All Die, which is about superintelligence. If you want a real uplifting book, that's what I'm reading right now at night. And it's basically just like, if we do this, this is it. Like, we can't do this. Because even if we think we can control it, you can't, you don't understand it. Like, we won't understand it. The authors would be very skeptical that that's the right thing, or if it's even possible, right? And they do say, not to be too, scary, but like they say, it's like, we don't know. Like, we don't know. Like, this might happen, it might not happen, right? We're just looking at trends. That's all. So what we see, coming back to the present, right? So this is not more speculative. I do think below the surface, good people trying to make good things happen. Right? They're trying to do stuff. There's humanitarian researchers. I teach at ISU, I'll reference it kind of in passing here. But like hundreds of hours of sensitive audio, you can transcribe in minutes with the highest level of data protection. Right? We set up systems to do that. Right? You can transcribe audio anywhere. You can use a cloud service. But you can't transcribe audio of a 5-year-old doing that in school because there's like, depending on what you're doing, like a dozen laws you're like going to break by sending that to a cloud. Right? But you can do that on-prem securely. And then it allows you to just kind of transform your research. And you just want to get transcriptions of that and feedback on that. Like, these are some amazing things you can do if you can quickly start to speed up processes. Computational scientists, people that can't code or don't really code but are physicists, you can build your own software to do the calculations that you need to do, right? Without having to know how to code in Python or whatever, right? You can just make it happen, and then it completely changes your research. Anyone's just questioning, I think in general, right? If you start to use these tools and you understand how to work with them and you understand how to push back against them because they are sycophantic, they want you to engage with it because they want you to pay for using these tools. If you know how to kind of circumvent that, it's incredible as a thought partner and not an oracle. It's not capital T truth, right? That can help you work through an idea. And this thing with using Claude, which is one of the tools, I knew I didn't know what I was talking about, right? It was about like macroeconomics. Again, I'm a composer, I don't understand macroeconomics. But I basically was just shower thoughtsing into the system and then said like, look, I think I'm naive. Can you please just tell me if I'm naive, like poke holes in my argument. I'm an adult, you don't have to be nice to me. And it just started like swearing at me. It was like, blah, 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 blah. It was like, okay, that's like, a little too much, like went too far. But it's like, it treated me like a friend. Like there was my close friend that was like an economist. I'm like, dude, you're out of stop. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. This is way more complicated than you think it is. Which was good. It just it wasn't the truth. It let me go and know what I should go and read, basically. And that was great. Like, and I can go and read some articles, know what I'm looking for. All of these things are true, and all of them are correct, right? A humanitarian professor who's watching their carefully refined assessments become worthless, their research scraped and regurgitated by systems that understand nothing. Maybe the answer to that problem for them is to rip that out of their curriculum, rip it out of their life. On the flip side, you have an IT professor, their students have to learn these systems. Full stop. You have to, if you're in IT, if you're in technology. Coding will require AI fluency, and refusing to engage would be pedagogical malpractice. So at university, we have to, it's both, like they both have to happen at the same time, while talking about ethical responsible use. And we can't hold both of these things in our hands at the same time if we can't approach this with the nuance it demands. I personally am terrified that we as an institutional concept will not survive. We have to be able to have that conversation and that degree of back and forth. Talk a little bit about this, but this is like a huge question about energy, water, context, all of that. Yeah, I've learned way more about like content delivery networks and like coal power plants versus whatever, versus talking about aquifers, talking about like different places where things work. Hopefully you'll see that it's legitimate, the concerns are legitimate, but it's complicated, very, very complicated. So carbon footprint, right? AI systems could produce 32 to 80 million tons of CO2 in 2025, the equivalent of New York City's total emissions. Water consumption, large data centers can use 5 million gallons of water a day. It's equivalent of about 50,000 residents. Local impact, water stress regions especially are disproportionately affected. Okay? Facility siting decisions matter enormously. Like, where do you put these things, right? The issue is, as we've dug in and had conversations with people, you can basically make the numbers say whatever you want them to say, because it's so difficult to pin down what exactly is happening. Okay, depending upon which model, which task, which data center, comparison point, where is the power coming from? Is it closed loop, open loop? Like, how hot is it? Like, what's the average temperature of the place? You can have, like, if you want to make an infographic that says these things are destroying the planet, totally fine and not wrong. You can have an infographic saying it's way worse, it's not even close to as bad as Netflix. Also kind of true, right? If I haven't thought about that, we kind of have been this like frog in a pot of water for a long time, that we've slowly been raising the temperature on data usage. If you have a 4K television, you stream 4K Disney Plus, and you watch on a snow day, and you watch like 6 hours, that's like 10 terabytes of data you stream, which is a lot. Like, you're pulling through a data center, right? It's more like thinking about tiny little fires that are burning as opposed to a data center, which is like a huge bonfire that's burning. But we're still lighting lots and lots and lots of fires everywhere, and usage like that. The difference in AI, and I do think this is true, it could have a transformational positive impact on research and accessibility, the problems that we're trying to solve. It doesn't excuse the cost, but it does really complicate the calculus and the conversation. Everything we do has a cost. This isn't about whataboutism or letting anyone off the hook, right? It's about being honest, that we've been making these trade-offs for decades, mostly without thinking about them, that we have a data problem. The question isn't whether AI uses resources, it does. And the question is, what do we get in return, right? And are we asking those questions consistently? A pair of jeans, a cheeseburger, a cross-country flight, a binge watch, a ChatGPT conversation, they all have a footprint. The point isn't to rank them, it's to be awake to the fact that we've always been choosing this. The water conversation, a lot of times isn't about water, and this is like non-local. I know we were talking about like down by Lincoln, that kind of, they're talking about one in Pekin. Those are real conversations. Like, we need to have those, and if they said we want to build a data center in McLean County, I would be out to protest saying like, no, man, like my water tastes terrible. Like, we don't have good water anymore. It's not, we can't do that. There are lots of places where you could build a data center. There are abundant resources. Why aren't we putting them there? It's because it's not economically incentivized to build them there. We need to economically incentivize putting them in rural South Dakota, where it's very cold and there can be abundant resources, right? But we aren't. They're trying to put them in Arizona, where there's not a lot of water historically, if you know that, right? Because it's economically incentivized to do that. Tax breaks, like that's terrible. Like, we don't want to do that. I think Jonathan Kumi says it really well here from Stanford. The part of what we're seeing with water is that the rules and the norms and the prices are set based on previous reality. It does all come back to this question: what is the value of the service being delivered? So a single pair of jeans, that requires 1,800 gallons of water. A pound of beef is about 1,800 gallons of water. We don't have visceral environmental shame about shame conversations about denim or going to McDonald's or something like that, right? It's a societal mass value judgment that's playing out in real time, which is a separate conversation than the ecological impact. They're both important, right? So people who don't think twice about eating a burger or buying a new t-shirt are angry about LLMs and water because they're rejecting the premise that AI isn't worth the cost. Which again, it's a valid conversation, right? It's a legitimate question, but it's a different question than how much water does ChatGPT produce? Because that is very difficult, and it's probably way less than what you think, based on all of my research. Again, it's very opaque. It depends on what you're doing, what you're using it for, how long you're using it for, when you're using it, what time of day. It's very complicated. It's too complicated. I think it's too easy to spin the numbers in either direction. Moral arguments dressed up as environmental data are very hard to engage with. It's tricky, right? Again, it's not saying like we shouldn't push back against it. You absolutely should. And it's really dangerous. But we were just talking about this beforehand. I feel like a crazy person because I'm saying we can't build data centers. We have to build data centers because it's like we also have to because it's like this is like a Manhattan level problem. You know, liberal democracy has to win. Like if there's a thing to win, right? Which is another conversation entirely. But there are bad actors that are screaming full speed ahead, right? We need to be engaged. But yeah, that doesn't mean we need to do it recklessly. An unavoidable reality, the technology is here. It will be, whether or not we want it, it will be miniaturized. The term's called distilled. ChatGPT in 2022, I have on my phone, I can show you, a model running on my phone without the internet, to shut the internet off, that's an order of magnitude more powerful. On my phone. Right? What was using all of that water going to a data center 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, has already been distilled to 15 watts. Okay, so that's not going to stop. We know that works. So the most powerful tools that you're seeing, which are bananas now, will continue to miniaturize because we know how to do it. It's just like a technological process. Right? Focusing them down. No matter what happens to the markets, the bubble bursts, OpenAI goes bust, XAI goes out of business, right? Zuckerberg pivots back to the metaverse and decides, not AI, we want VR now, right? The technology's not going away. It will be sold to us and it will be our responsibility to know how to read the bill of sale. You gotta know like what we're doing. Like all things, this technology can be used for tremendous good and it can be used for tremendous evil. And it's currently being developed by many really compassionate, rational human beings and many not so rational, not so compassionate human beings who are unfortunately, in my opinion, perhaps being led by some of the worst people who have ever lived. Right? And that's the technocrat, like, oligarchy is really scary, right? So that is a whole other conversation, which, it's again, I feel like a crazy person to say, no, that's terrifying. Yes, the researchers at Google should have our, like, we should, that's okay. Yes, you need to do it in an ethical way. No, don't put that data center here. Yes, put them in space. No, yes, build nuclear power plants. No, it's like, because it's just like all over the place. And that's going to take a tremendous amount of figuring out, like, what is the path. But it, there's like an inevitability, like you have to have that conversation. This is me, like, as a professor, like just for context, so like what keeps me up at night is that the world is not looking for us for guidance, like a university, right? You know, as a professor, I watch us wait, because I constantly in university, for the next blog post or product release from OpenAI to be regurgitated and filtered through layers and layers of AI to fit the narrative we want to read on our social media feeds, right? So we have something that comes out, the news happens, they say something from the Hill, right? It's distributed, it goes onto social media. You will see versions of that that want you, the algorithm, the AI wants you to see, so that it creates engagement, right? You're not going to see necessarily the blog post, you're going to see the filtration in the way that will make you engage with it, which is almost always anger. Like it'll be the thing that makes you upset, right? And however, we have universities with hundreds of scholars and hundreds of years combined experience, libraries, they're trusted institutions, and we see the conversation of tech companies, and I think that's insanity. Right now, vendors are telling us what we want, and they're telling you what to want if you don't realize it or not, right, what's being sold to us. So Amazon literally tells universities, the home of hundreds of scholars with hundreds of years of experience, here is a tool that will grade your students' homework for you. And that's actually a thing. We were in a conference where they were talking about, wow, look at this great tool we have. And we sort of looked around like, but I don't want that. I don't want it to grade my students' work. Because that's what I do. That's what I'm going to add to this situation. And you know, thank God, like there are people in the room saying that. Saying like, not saying, wow, I could efficiency myself out of the job. That's amazing. It's like, no. That doesn't mean you reject the technology. It means that we have to think about what we're doing differently. It means that grading, I think, should be high contact, high touch, personalized attention to the students. But you can use technology to change the way you teach. And I think that's also very good. And discipline specific, but it's not necessarily the choice for everyone. We need more people in those rooms. It's not just me, it's like, it's you guys. Like we need people in that room, right, to push back. And I want Amazon asking us what they should be doing, right? Not telling us what they're going to do. So the work ahead, what this requires, right, is difficult. It requires literacy, humility, and uncertainty. Those are all really hard. The assumption that we're not correct, that there's more to the iceberg than we see, and their positions will change. So a hard no today might be a cautious yes in 6 months, and a hard yes today might become no, right, when you learn more about it, and that's totally fine. That we need to understand the security concerns of where our data goes. If you're not paying for it, you're the product. Okay? Almost always what you're paying for is data security. You're paying for, we're not going to trade your data, we're going to put it in a little box, wink wink, you know, yeah, it's super secure. It's more secure than just using the free tool, right? I've talked to a lot of people, business owners, where they talk about using free tools. Please don't, like, put it in your budget, $20 a month. If you want to use ChatGPT, just pay for it, man. Because that is like the biggest thing to say, at least in your terms of service, they're saying, this is not the thing. And that we don't actually know, or that we don't know yet, right? That paradoxically, I think here there's this opportunity that the more technologically interwoven things become, and the more we seed algorithmic work to things that are good at algorithms, we can become much more human. And there's a lot of different ways that can happen. The ones I usually say, like just as kind of like quick ones, right, are, you know, again, your assistants on your phones, right? I was on the phone with my mom when I was driving, you know, down here just talking to her. And I was talking about Gemini and like all this stuff and what is their new personalized intelligence, this thing they rolled out, which is going to be with Siri and all the different devices in the next 18 months. That I was just turned it on, I was curious, and I was asking this question about how to fix something in my house. I was just curious and said, oh yeah, you do this, and because you bought these things on Amazon, you know, it's probably this, and here's the light bulb you're going to use, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, how did you, it's like, it's got your email, man. Like, it's like, you use Gmail, do you order things on Amazon, they go to your Gmail, which is like, wow, that's really freaky until you realize they've always had the data, guys. There's nothing particularly different about it. It's just becoming really clear, like what we have seeded to companies, right? They've all, like, you know, it's your Gmail, man. Like, yeah, they don't read it, right? Yeah. Like, it's a thing, right? You're using a tool, and that's okay. Nothing is really changing, but there's a potential there for really good, right? So an algorithmic thing that we do all the time, or often do, right? I have a medical bill that I have to pay. I don't want to sit on hold, so I'm talking to my insurance company. That's not a thing. Like, it's just a decision tree. It's an algorithm. Here's my information. You already have it. Here's my stuff that's in my email that I got. Go. Let me know if you have a question. Right? And it goes and we'll do the thing and come back and say, this is this, good. Yep, great. Thanks. Right? I mean, that is coming. Like, that will be a very real thing. Okay? And it should allow, right, for less algorithmic decision making and more human decision making. What do you do in that time? Oh, go garden. Like, go play with your dog, right? Do something. Go for a walk. Be a human being. Is the thing, right? It's going to be up to us to make that kind of like recommend to build that world, right? Because there will be a pull to become more engaged in the systems, right? But you have to be able to say, oh, great, like that's over here now. Now I'm going to rework. Fantastic. Right? And that would be great, right? Having that conversation, thinking like that, that's, you know, sitting with uncertainty, I think, and being willing to do that, being flexible, and understanding you don't have the answer, and that together we can figure it out. That I am likely wrong, and you are likely wrong, and I am likely right, and you are likely right. About everything is antithetical to, like, the way we want to behave. I mean, you don't want to be in that position because you want to have certainty, right? It makes you feel uneasy, and it should make you feel uneasy. But that is the kind of nuance that we have to go forward with because it's going to change very rapidly. So we can talk, right? You guys have questions? Here's some questions to seed conversations. You know, if you have things, there are no wrong answers. It's supposed to be messy and circular and very real. Just as like a first kind of anecdote, I gave a talk on WGLT 2 months ago, or it was right before Christmas. Went in for like a podcast, and GLT's like the NPR in Bloomington. And the podcast was one thing. They wrote an article about it. The article was like, it was phrased to be a little bit more confrontational than I think the conversation was. Because it sounded, it sounded really confrontational, but it was not the conversation it was having. It was about AI and like teaching and all this stuff. And got posted on the internet, went on Facebook, and I was like, oh cool, they tagged me in it. And I started reading the comments, and it was just like vitriol. Like people were like, what is this? Oh my god, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is not like what I was saying, obviously. Like you're missing parts of the context, right? It's a 30-minute conversation, you have 300 words here, like I started going back and forth with people. And then at one point was just like, guys, I live here. Like I'm in Bloomington. You guys are all presumably in Bloomington. Who wants to go get coffee and talk about this? Because what we're doing right now is we're engaging through this mechanism that is forcing us to be inhuman. To talk about something that is potentially going to make us less human, like please, everyone stop. I was like, I would like anyone on this thread a cup of coffee. Like just send me a message. And people did, and it was great. And we went and talked, and we sort of worked things out, and I was trying to be able to make my position more clear, that I was not saying we need to destroy liberal arts education. I'm a music professor, but it can sound, things can sound a certain way, right? And that's what I mean by real, like it's this opportunity to just talk, to be humans and disengage from the machine. So, what are your questions? Do you have questions? Yeah?
It sounds like we're in a position as a country that we've got to move forward with AI because the bad actors in the other countries are moving forward at a rapid pace, probably as rapid as what we are, if not more.
Yeah, we have first mover advantage, and OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, they are in the lead. China is the main competitor. And China is accelerating very quickly, and they're open sourcing everything, right? And it's sort of like, I read something about, this was when I was little, but like the way China destabilized the steel industry, read about this? I didn't know anything about this in the 70s, 80s. Lowering the price of steel, which is destabilizing the American steel industry, which was then causing economic turmoil in America, that they're potentially doing the same thing with AI, where it's like you can place a market value in the cost by making really good tools, and then they'll just make it and then make it free. And it's like, that's very hard to compete with because these things cost billions of dollars to make. Well, if you just make them free, then it can mess up the whole competitive advantage. It also allows for literally anyone to use it. So you can just go and download these tools and run them as long as you have a supercomputer. Which
I
is the whole
noticed,
thing.
I'm on Facebook too much, but
It's fair.
I noticed some of the pictures on there in very small print will say AI generated.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm assuming that there's other pictures that don't tell you that. And how do you distinguish something that's, I guess, real and something that's AI generated?
There's a bunch of ways you can do it. And this is a great question about legislation and where I have personal beliefs about what we need to do here. The first line is they will watermark it. So you'll see AI generated, right? The Gemini ones have a little Gemini symbol, like a diamond. The Sora videos have Sora, there's watermarks on it. So it'll clearly look like something was generated there. You can remove them very easily, obviously. As easy as just taking a screenshot of it, cropping out the thing. If they don't do that, another way to look at it is, say they remove it, you can download the picture and then go into the metadata, right click on it and say about this photo, and there will be metadata that says this was generated in Gemini, blah, blah, blah. Another TikTok video that can explain how to not do that, you can rip the metadata out really easily. And then you can get good at a sniff test. I've gotten pretty good at it. There was a really hard video test that came out, and I got an 80 on it. I thought it was pretty good. These are AI or not AI. And man, it's very hard. But I've looked at it enough, and that lighting and refraction is not quite right. But that's you've got to stop and stare at it, right? And that's right now.
So a lot of people are being manipulated.
Oh God,
I guess
yes,
they have no idea they're being manipulated.
You guys have seen dozens, hundreds of pictures. that are AI. And you probably said no, right? The legislature part of that is, I do think we need to have some sort of, and Illinois does have state laws about this. For instance, if you can't deepfake someone in Illinois, if you make an AI video of somebody doing something without their consent, it's a state crime. So don't do that. But there needs to be like more teeth to this. You know, create like, especially if you take something you AI generated and you intentionally manipulate it to not be the provenance to be removed, you can't reverse engineer it. There's some degree of like algorithmic understanding that you can feed back into your system that you can kind of like analyze it, but that's not going to hold up forever. That if we can trace it back to someone who did that, there has to be some responsibility because it's the misinformation, disinformation is extreme. Yeah. That's coming from a particular angle right now. You're right.
So are the oligarchs in this country mainly behind a lot of this?
Yeah.
They're
Well,
invested heavily in it, I know.
yeah, I think
It's not
everyone.
just-
Yeah, it's the biggest opportunity, right? If you want to like get really big about it, it's like this is the first time we've attacked the relationship between an employer, an employee, and the government at a fundamental level. Ever, maybe? Like cognitive labor, right? Like we've had like stuff, you know, like the steam engine, right? Factory work, like so you use horses to like cars. Like there's been like this displacement, right? People, you know, you're not a blacksmith, now you're a mechanic, right? I mean, like those things happen, and there's a lot of pain, and like it's awful, right? New generation. The same thing's happening, except for it's all cognitive work, and it'll happen in 2 years, right? Which the other side of that again could be a lot of things. There could be a lot of good, different ways of looking at the world, and medicine, like medical research, there's tons of good, right? However, there's also the opportunity to make like $50 trillion. Like it's such a huge, you know, like it's like chunks of the global GDP, right? It's kind of up for grabs. To the point where it's like I don't think the system it doesn't make sense. Like it's destabilizing capitalism basically. Like what are you doing? Like you're like pulling Jenga pieces out of the tower. Like at some point this is not going to work. Jeff Bezos can't have $25 trillion if no one works anywhere. He's going to buy anything from Amazon. Like, you know what I mean? Like at a certain point, the system breaks. And that's what I don't understand. I fundamentally about the economic, that was the part of that macroeconomics question that caused the good that you're talking about. Because I don't understand all of that interviews.
So as this accelerates, we're going to see more and more people out of work?
Could. I don't know. Yeah, it's... I think there will be levels of kind of impact, right? I think this year, the agentic stuff, like being able to go off and do something for me, right, is going to become widespread, you know, where it's like, okay, go chew on this thing for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, and just create files on my computer, right, and do this thing, build this thing. I don't know how to do this, okay, I'll make the software for you to do it. I mean, that like is a job, it's someone's job, right? At the very least, in a workforce, that changes how you do your job, which is really interesting. I think it could dramatically change what your job is and how your job works in a really good way. And again, I hope in a way that's probably closer and more aligned with what you want to do. The conversations I have constantly with like your companies or talking to CEOs or whatever is don't replace people. Like the opportunity here is
self-checkout at the grocery store.
Self-checkout at the grocery store, right? It's like people rebel against it. We don't like it. It doesn't work, right? That please bet on the human plus the tool. Like it's never been wrong, ever, right? There are tools that come in and destabilize a human with the tools always better. Like it's going to change your workforce dramatically, potentially, or changes what teaching looks like. But that is potentially awesome. Like that's the market inefficiency. No one knows what it is. I don't know what to tell you about like what your company should do or what your employees should do. It's also maddening because it's like the opposite. I had someone tell me this, like that is the opposite of how this works. Is what they said. I said, what you need to do is ask the lowest level, like the doers, like who are doing things in your company. Give them access to this stuff and tell them to tell you how they would use it. And they were like, that isn't how any of this works. We give them a tool and we tell them to use it. It's like, no, you need to tell them to figure out, like headhunt, how they would use it, and let them change their jobs. Which is like maddening, I'm sure, as like a CEO or a president of a company or something, because you don't know what's going to happen, right? But the inefficiencies you can find, or like the way your company is, it's going to come from the people who are actually doing the work. They're going to say, wow, you know what? Instead of doing this and this, I do this and this and this. It's like, great, that's your job now. Like, go. And now, like, how did you like that more? Like, is that, it's like return on employee? Like, you just like your work more, and you're able to do, instead of a 50-hour a week like crunch period, you're just working 37.5 hours. Awesome. That would be great, right? That those are like real potential things right now. The problem is, you're disincentivized to do that, and you're incentivized to say, we don't need people to answer the phones, we'll just use an AI. And people do that, and then they fire everyone, and then they have to rehire everyone because things don't work, and that's what you see in the news, right? Which is like, they're dumb, and don't do that. It's like, that's not how any of this works. It's not how the tools work. They're being sold something by a company that doesn't actually work. What they need to do is literacy, teach people in the same way that, like, imagine computers coming out or any type of technology to figure out how it's going to change the kind of fabric. But yeah, that's like hard. It's not in.
As an educator, are there tools that you have that will help you detect if a student is being over-reliant on AI?
There are tons of them. There are AI detectors. There's, many of them. Some of them are free, some you can pay for. The problem is they don't really work. Case in point, I put my dissertation in for 2012, and like 40% of it's AI. It's obviously not 40% AI, but if you write somewhat algorithmically, right, it will flag it as AI. I like using M dashes, but M dashes are such a tell in AI. And now I feel like I can't use them. It's actually kind of upset about it because it looks like I'm like an AI. So we don't, at ISU, we don't have an institutional agreement with any of those companies because the false positives are real. There aren't that many false negatives. I mean, like, the false positives are super real. And also it disproportionately hits non-native speakers. So if you're just trying to learn how to write in English, your English is probably pretty algorithmic because you're writing without maybe some more nuance because you're learning language. And I'm going to end up hitting just trying to write English. An interesting thing that we started kicking around was this idea of an inverse of that, which is a human detector. So this is like very, very not real. We're not actually doing this at ISU, but I did it myself and talked to my colleagues about it. But if you get students to give you their writing, like you collect writing samples from them. It's like, hey, this is a paper I wrote, this is another paper, and you can securely create a database of their writing, then you can just see if their writing sounds like them. So it's like, you're not seeing if they sound like an AI, you're seeing if you're writing something like right? Which is interesting, right? And it's like, it's actually like a teaching tool because you can show them how their writing is changing over the semester, right? And if they obviously wrote something with ChatGPT, it would immediately say, that's like 3% you, right? And you can start teaching them about writing, which I think is kind of cool. It would take a lot of like student buy-in to do that because you would have to harvest their writing, and you could do it securely, like that's all fine. But it sort of answers your question. It's an imperfect thing, and it's an arms race we don't want to have with students, to be completely honest. It's much more have a transparent discussion about usage. Say like, look, don't use these things, here's why. If you're an accountant and you're in an intro accounting class, if you don't learn how debits and credits work, that's not going to work out really well for you. So please learn about debits and credits. Don't ask ChatGPT. You may think you're getting away with it, but there will be a day. You will not. It's like, you will not have a job, so. Other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're younger than most of us here.
Maybe.
Well,
I feel like I'm aging, like, as I watch myself at this point.
maybe you're younger.
Yeah.
And your answers so far have given kind of a neutral to optimistic viewpoint of the future.
Sure.
I don't have that feel.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to express myself, but I'm going to say, I think as a college professor, if you don't, if you want to control kids using AI, I think you're going to be fighting a losing battle, because human nature is just to find the easiest, quickest, most efficient way to do things.
Yep.
And almost gets to the point, accelerate a little bit and go past that. In the future, why even have all this knowledge in your head when you can just dictate talk,
Yep.
tell it to, who knows, in your brain, glasses,
Yeah.
just talk to AI.
And I don't think we're not heading towards that. I think that's probably where we're heading. I think that's where we're heading. Sorry, don't
Yeah.
do this. I think that is probably where we're heading.
So
And-
let me add to that.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
When you talk about routine labor, a call center being replaced, people, what happens to society if 50% of the people, there just aren't jobs?
Yeah.
For 50% of the people.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like it won't work.
I
That's
know,
it's intentionally destabilizing the
It sounds
thing.
so, well,
Well, it's too. It sounds like why would we do that, right? It's like what are we doing?
no,
Right?
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
what do we do?
Well, yeah, and I
Economically,
agree.
how does it work?
I don't know.
How do we not kill one another? How do we?
Yeah, I do think it's. You didn't say like you said like neutral or optimistic. It kind of depends on the time of day where I'm at, like my outlook on the world. Usually more optimistic in the morning.
Yeah.
Later at night, it's usually less optimistic. I mean, I've got kids, 7, 9, and 10-year-olds, right? I mean, I sort of, I don't want to spend my time not thinking about an optimistic future, right? And a future that at least resembles reality. So there's like nothing, if it's going to go off the rails, outside of just trying to have conversations with people and try to like locally do whatever you can. I can't stop Elon Musk from doing something, right? I mean, so I'm just going to do everything I can and try to raise kids that are just citizens, right? And it's like, it's all the same thing you tell your kids before they go to kindergarten, right? That's truly fundamentally what matters, right? Be nice, don't be an idiot, like, like don't hit people. And that will, I think, be transferable to any future. Again, if this goes full dystopia, then like I mean, it could get real bad. The reality is, I think we're going to be somewhere in the middle, where it's going to be kind of weird, and things will unevenly like move, right? Be like bursts of weirdness, and they kind of come back. So that we're living in a world that looks a lot like today, but like as foreign as like this would look to someone 25 years ago. Be like, this is the collective of like human knowledge. I have a subscription plan for it. Like, I mean, this is like, what are you talking about, man? Like I told my mom, I was driving up here, down here, and I said, hey, I made this thing I'm gonna give to people for Christmas, and I wrote a script with Claude that went and, downloaded the open wikis, downloaded Private Gutenberg, like made an offline version of like a big chunk of human knowledge. We put it on a flash drive, it's 470 gigabytes. There you go, right? I mean, like, why? It's not trying to be dystopic, like the internet breaks and we're all living in the woods, but it's like, it's nice to have, right? It's like, wow, the power's out, I can still read Frankenstein. I don't know. And it's just there, it's on a flash drive, and it's on an archival thing. I think the reality is it's not going to be probably as bad. I don't trust anyone to do the right thing. I certainly don't trust the infrastructure of our current political system to get this right at all. And that is really discouraging. It's motivated by money. It's motivated by trying to productize things. But again, I can't stress enough, that's like not the fundamental technology. Like the fundamental technology of language models and diffusion, all this stuff is like, it's like magic. I mean, it's like so crazy powerful to do things to solve problems, and will accelerate solving those problems that don't conflict the two, right? They are the same, right? And the money is funding them the same way, but like the potential good is there. I'm not an economist, so I can't answer your question about like, is it UBI or is it like local collectives or there's been tons of like discussion, like do we just own intelligence? Intelligence like a resource? Is it like a human right? It's like water? Do we have a utility bill for it? does everyone get access to like super intelligence and you can do whatever you want with it? Like, sell your resources back and I can have yours if you don't want it and I pay you and I make a company for like, I don't know. There's like a lot of theories about it and all of them sound like Star Trek basically. Any questions?
I have a question, especially, working at the university and having younger kids who are, interested in careers and, I told my daughter, growing up that my career, my job didn't even exist when I first entered the workforce.
Yep.
And likely that may happen with her as well. But with the AI, are you seeing more people go into like the interpersonal communication areas? Because I'm thinking like things that AI can't actually replace.
Yeah, it's the like I've said this before, we have to embody the opposite of it. And I think there's a lot of power there. I had a conversation with the head of the Katie School of Insurance at ISU. And we were sitting at a thing, we got there were a whole bunch of students around this like actuary and, one study adjusting and all this stuff, right? And we kind of came to this realization, we're like, you have to recruit like theater students to be insurance. Because the things we were talking about, like what they teach, it's really algorithmic, mathematical. And what you're gonna want is like an empath. Like I want someone who just is like a theater kid who just is like this oozing charisma to be my insurance person. That person would never like identify as like working in the insurance field, right? In high school, they don't see them doing that. So they're like, I don't do math. I don't like. But it's like it's not really math anymore. I mean, it hasn't been for a while, and it's simply not. It's been like I do Excel, which is not doing math. It's like you're using Excel, right? And now that goes away, and what it becomes is then humanity, right? And I think there's that a lot, like soft skills, and just like nursing. I don't know if you guys are in the nursing profession, but I mean, I've worked with nurses a ton, about like how can we get rid of alarm fatigue? How can we like deal with, getting more touch time for people? And there's tremendous opportunity to allow for tools to let people nurse. Like actually go and sit with someone for 30 minutes. You have time to do that because the other stuff is being pushed off the systems. I think there's awesome upside there. The problem is it's so jagged. Like there's a million different professions with like nuance to them. But I think I'm optimistic about that.
You living in Plain County, you're probably familiar with the power plant here, the nuclear plant, and with, what's his name?
Meta, Zuckerberg?
Yeah, Zuckerberg. Wanting to come down and put a few $1 billion into building a...
Casual.
Casual building. Building phase 2. You gonna be on the picket line?
For that, I don't know enough about it. Like I honestly just don't know. I don't know what the impact is. I don't know what that does to your community. Like, is it stabilizing? Is it destabilizing? Is that? Those are the questions I would ask. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like good, but like probably complicated.
Well, it was my understanding, maybe I assumed this and shouldn't have, that he was talking about doing that so that the power would be there to run a data center.
Certainly.
And if there was a data center there, it would be using 5 million gallons of water a day.
Yeah, theoretically. Again, there's like a lot of nuance there. Is it closed loop? Is it open loop? Do you put the water in like once, basically, and then you're not pulling it? Are you pulling wastewater? Yeah, is it using like, is it potable water? Is it non-potable water? I mean, there's like a lot, again, it depends, the data centers are all different, right? So the water thing is one thing, the power thing is another thing, right? And I'm on Amber and I was getting all the text alerts during the colds, like, energy's 35 cents of like it's like, what are you talking about? Right, you can't do that, right? And if data centers begin to stress the grid more, which they are, like that's the one that really scares me, like rolling brownouts and like stuff, right? And like that theoretically is solvable through power plants, I think. But again, I don't know where that knock-on effects with other systems are. One of the problems that there were like choices made 15, 20 years ago that we're seeing those ramifications of now, right? Policy decisions made probably for very good reasons didn't anticipate this huge spike like in need in electricity all at once before you can build infrastructure, right? And again, you're asking why do we build the infrastructure? Why does it have to go so fast? And it's like very complicated, right? I think that we both need to go fast and we need to build the infrastructure. We need to slow down. And it's, do they need to do it do they need to do it here? I don't know. Are we incentivized to do it here because there's a lot of investment in money and jobs? Potentially. I don't know those questions. I don't know the answers. I know that
I
people
don't
like,
either.
yeah,
That's
those
why
are
I asked
questions
the expert.
No, well, those are the questions I would ask, because I knew it was happening. It was like, oh, I mean, I see Meta and I immediately think like, uh-oh. Like, that's my general gut feeling. It's like, no. But also, is that like good for the economy? Is that something we need to, I mean, I don't know. I know people are building modular nuclear power plants. That's the thing. Like, they're just gonna, it's like, stack them up, man. You know, you can install nuclear power plants. I mean, they've had them for a long time, like in submarines and all that other stuff, right? But like the whole industry around like doing that for data centers, we just reel them in. You've got nuclear power. Here you go. Right? It doesn't solve the water problem, but the water problem also I think is solvable through. Again, there's lots of different ways to do it. It's solvable. It's still an impact. It's not necessarily the like gallon of water for every ChatGPT query or whatever has been floating around. I think it's somewhere in between that and negligible. It kind of depends, where it is, what you're pulling from.
Yeah, I'm looking for the problems to slowly get solved,
Yeah, oh,
or
yeah,
mitigated.
yeah. Question? Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, like a lot of insurance companies are going with reviewing medical records and making decisions through AI on whether you should have a procedure?
Yeah.
I mean,
Super problematic, right? So like, I think reviewing things, flagging stuff, fine. Like human making decision, necessary, right? Speed up the process, fine. Like do things like, we have people that don't, or we need to translate these documents into Spanish or something. Great, like that's great. As long as there's a person in the loop, because the things are simulacrum, they're us. They're weird alien version of us, right? Language models. So they have all of our biases, they have all of our like implicit misunderstandings of the world, right? And we can try to beat that out of them. And we're really good at making them not be implicitly racist, but they still are. Like it's just there. So should the tools, say, run this through, read their thing, decide if they get coverage? No, I think that's horrible. But can you speed up that process? Yes. Right.
because they're using it now to deny claims.
See, that's, yeah, and it's like, no, I think it's terrible. But can you, I think, make work more? Can you make work faster, or do work that was not possible? Yes, but not the low-hanging fruit of, oh, I need 10 people, not 100. We'll do this thing and then deal with the problems. No. Right? Like that's horrible. We don't need to do that.
So it
And I
really
think
speaks
there are-
to ethics.
Yeah, it's ethics, it's responsible use, it's like, that's unethical, right? We can all agree, like, that there's a human decision there, right? A lot of this, I've had this conversation a ton, where many of these things are a human problem, not a tech problem, right? The technology is one thing, and human society use it is another thing. And that's a misapplication of the tech because they're incentivized to do that. And don't do that, right? But they're gonna do it because the actuaries are saying it's cheaper to do it this way because we'll get sued, but that's going to be the savings will be there or whatever. And that's, no, we don't do that. Yeah. So it's a bad answer. But
I just don't care for that part of it.
I don't either. Yeah, I agree. And Illinois has a lot of laws. I mean, I don't know where that insurance company was, but, we can't use I think as of January 1, right? If you use AI in any part of hiring process, any part of the hiring process for state equipment, you have to disclose it. Any usage of anything, right? Which is fine, but it's like woven into all kinds of things, so you have to be really careful. Like what you have to disclose that, like, oh, I received this email that had this like agenda in it, and Copilot summarized it. Like now we have to disclose like you were using AI, right? So like Illinois has like consumer protection laws and privacy protection laws, which I think are pretty robust, but other states don't. And depending on where the company is, it might be different. Any other questions? Happy to chat more. I know like, we got locked in here. It's like a shut the doors, but
You mentioned Claw.
Yeah.
Could you expound a little bit more?
yeah. So there's just a bunch of different language models. So like you think of them like that. I think a chatbot is like a very generic way to consider it. For all intents and purposes, these are all the same thing. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, which is from Anthropic. It's a smaller company, has the backing of Amazon, which is obviously very problematic. But I think they're the most like just one, like socially just, interested in research, coding, cool. I don't think it's a bad way of describing it. They're a bunch of tech billionaires. Copilot, things like that. Those are all kind of the same thing. They do slightly different things. They're wearing different trench coats, but you'll get the same output. I like using Claude. If I have to pick one, like Claude is where I go, because I think it is the most socially just. It will refuse to do things that Grok, sorry I didn't mention Grok, the XAI one, will not refuse to do. Claude will just, it's kind of like a narc. It'll just be like, no. It's like, where Grok will be like, sweet, let's do it. You know, because it has a bit more of a moral compass to feed into it. They're all slightly better at different things. So if you want like a kind of technical research assistant, Claude's super good. Copilot's kind of like ChatGPT if it got an MBA and it's less fun. ChatGPT is like the Copilot that dropped out of college, which is like maybe more fun. I don't know.
Is one easier than the other?
No, they're all kind of the same. And like interacting with them, you'll get the same kind of. They're receptive and responsive. Gemini, if you have a Google account, you have access to, and you can get it for free for a significant amount of time. If you sign up for a free trial, that's usually where I direct people because it's very good, and most people have a Google account. You've already got that ecosystem set up, and they already have your data. So congratulations. Which is
Scary.
well, it's like I say it kind of jokingly because it's like they do. Like unless you are some sort of alien, you have somehow kept out of like the web in some capacity. You're in the system, and we've been okay with that. Again, it's like that's a whole other conversation to have, right? But in a fundamental way, language models like these tools are just data compression. All it is compressing all of our data into a way that's easier to search, right? It's not like hitting a database. It's not like a Google search is like a fixed point. Right, so this is a website, this database. It's like truth with a lowercase t. It's like a truth. It's, which is different. And that's a whole other thing about teaching. You all learn how to use them and like know when to push back. And that doesn't. There's like a whole paradox too. This is like fascinating to me. I catch myself all the time that if you go and ask an AI about something you really know, you'll be able to tell like really fast when it like gets it wrong. You're like, that's not quite right. Like music, like I can see it going off the rails. But I never have that thought about like coding. I'll just be like, dude, this is so smart. But like, because you just don't know enough to know you don't know anything. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? You're on not stupid. You don't want to be there. But
That's where I'm at.
I'm there all the time, man. And then, like the downside is once you get off Mount Stupid, you're in like this valley of disillusionment. You're like an imposter. You're like imposter syndrome. Yeah. So, but they're all reasonably the same, for example.
I've never even tried to go on to look at one of these sites. Just typing into Google AI.
You just said, yeah,
Gemini?
Yeah, it's gemini.google.com.
Is it kind of self-explanatory once you get on there?
Yeah, they'll have the thing and say, what do you want to do? And you just start that.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're pretty, at this point, they're multimodal, so they have different inputs and outputs. So if you say, like, can you make me an infographic about blah, 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 doing this, blah, blah, it'll make the picture. It's like, you're not going to have to say make a picture, it'll just infer that that's what you were trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So a while ago, like a couple of years ago, we'd have to actually go to a different website, like, I need a picture. It's like, they're all kind of one-stop shop at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, if you haven't played with them, if you have like a moral sort of like ethical thing about like data and training, that's a whole other conversation, right? Again, I'm a composer. I know, someone sent me right before I came here, this open source version of a music generation tool that's like, I'm gonna run it tomorrow, check it on my computer, it's gonna like terrify me. Like it's like probably better than 90% of my students at writing music. They can get better, but like right now, right? You know, and it's free and runs on a laptop. That's terrifying. So that's one conversation. If you're worried about like the data consumption, water consumption, if you like don't get too freaked out about like asking a couple of questions. You're talking about like we are not the problem. The problem is like major swarms of companies doing this like nonstop. Like, it's like people like running a transatlantic flight with 2 people on the plane. Like it's like that kind of stuff. Like it's not that we don't have an impact, but it's so negligible to the vast kind of thing that is happening. Right? So I think the potential upside of you like learning about the thing and just being like, okay, I'll apprehensively go and see, the potential upside of being able to talk to someone about that is so much better than like saying, I will not, I refuse, right? And it's not an endorsement of the tool. I'm not trying to make you feel scummy by using it, but I think the ripples of that conversation are so important. Where you can talk to people about it and say, from this position, it did this was really helpful. Okay, that's great. Because yeah, it's not going away. It's like a fundamental thing, and it's going to become localized, and there is theoretically no ecological impacts to me writing this other than I have to charge my phone, right? Which there's a sunk cost in it made the model, and like you have to train it and all that stuff, but it is a fixed sunk cost at this point.
So are all data centers, are they like data chain
No.
together?
No, that's a good question. I mean, I say no, like the caveat of like, this is my understanding, right? That you're hitting certain ones depending upon the time of day, depending upon the service you're using. So there's a lot of them in Virginia. I know, again, I don't want to speak like wrongly about this, but like certain companies are invested in certain areas, right? And you have no idea where it's going, right? You're getting routed based on usage, time of day, power consumption, all that kind of stuff. At least for AI, right? I know like streaming Netflix is like an elaborate like web of like this called a CDN, a content delivery network, where they distribute the load and like the usage. Price of like bonfires versus tiny fires, like that analogy. Both of them are a tremendous amount of data, but it's not like one spot where you're like nuking it.
So like if a data center goes down,
there's contingency, but like they go down and you can go to download detector, you type it into Google, and like services are off because all of their data centers are down. Like something is broken somewhere, and that definitely affects like ChatGPT might be off, it's down because all of their network is out.
and is there a master kill switch?
I hope so. I mean, I don't know. It's like that's a whole. I mean, we would have that conversation too.
And
It's
where
like,
is it at?
yeah, right. Someone, there was like, every once in a while, someone will find something that like throws these things off to the point where they just like kind of self-destruct, like the whole thing melts down. It's like, dude, like copy that and put it on one of those like engraved like DVDs that'll last for 10,000 years, and like put that in the drawer, man. Like that's like, we want to know. Yeah, I don't know. It does freak me out a little bit because what we are seeing is probably what was cutting edge 18 months ago is what's coming out now. So what is like, this is, and we're also talking about like public facing, like what are governments doing? It's really like crazy stuff. Also learning, I mean, what people were doing 20 years ago. It's like, oh my gosh, that was insane. As that becomes declassified, like who knows? So hopefully, to answer your question, there's someone sitting with just their job is to watch the button. Yeah. Thank you guys. This is great.
Excuse me, you mentioned there was going to be a QR code
Yes.
for the presentation.